Okay, so when Shubham introduced me, he used a title called Customer Advisory. I'm part of Customer Advisory. When he introduced Ashwini, he used Customer Success, right? I'm just trying to, since there was a lot of deliberation on gap between industry and academics. I'm just trying to address, how do we look at these things, and how do we essentially look at these traits, capabilities when we look at students, right? When we look at students, I'm talking about, we take a lot of interns. Okay, so interns, Gen Z is part of our, predominant workforce as of now. So being an analytics company, the basic ingredient has to be, like, we need to have Gen Z, otherwise we are, out of touch, right? So when I said customer advisory, so my primary job is to engage with a banking customer, for example, ICICI Bank or HDFC Bank, or an insurance company, or a government entity, or a manufacturing entity. What do I do over there? I just primarily try and understand their requirement for a technology. In the specific case of SaS, we talk about analytics, right? I'm not using very sophisticated terms around AI, ML, deep learning, Gen AI, agentic AI. Fundamental issue is that they have a problem, business problem. We need to address that business problem. What could be the example of a business problem? It could be increasing their revenue, optimizing their inventory, minimizing the wastages. These are typical business problems, what we are all aware. I think even in the context of your business, I'm sorry to use the word education as a business, but in your day-to-day operations, you also face a lot of issues which requires analysis of data and solve those problems, right? So as a role, what I do is I engage with them, try and understand their problem, try and relate with data what they have, technique that can be used, and come out with a solution and give that solution to them, right? Now, in the process of this entire life cycle, right from problem identification, understanding, and giving solution, there are various skill sets that come into the plate, right? The skill sets could be one, primarily listening skills, right? I think that is very, very important when we are interacting with our customers. Second is the basic aptitude around being able to understand that particular problem and try and relate if there is that problem. And then come back and then do a brainstorming with people like Prashant. Okay, he's a data science specialist, and then go back to the customer and run the solution, whether they're okay, not okay, and run this entire iteration, right? If you say there's no rocket science in this, any real life problem what we solve, whether it relates to customer, whether it relates to problem what we have at home, this is the typical process what we follow. And when I interview people as part of to be taken as an intern or a full-time employee in our teams, I don't really look at their understanding of complex algorithms. I ask some simple questions around basic probability, basic linear algebra, right? And there's nothing rocket science what we typically ask. They may end up solving complex problems, but what we typically look at is their aptitude and attitude. These are the fundamental ingredients what we look at when I'm onboarding somebody as intern or a full-time employee. The reason why I'm saying this is most of the use cases which I'm going to discuss are the use cases. Yeah, are the use cases. Are the use cases.
We are not able to.
Yeah. Are they? Are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Are the use cases which are solved by these interns, these Gen Z employees? Our traditional understanding and the current technology, for me or him, there will be gaps. But these are the guys who supplement our domaining understanding and their technology. We essentially complement, supplement each other and come with a solution. So before I get into what are those use cases, I just want to discuss what is the level of technology, the level of adoption of technology in the Indian context. Okay. Over the last 2 decades, what I call this, India is going through a transformation. And how do I explain transformation? The transformation could be explained in the form of the digital identity what we have created. So we have roughly around 1.35 billion Aadhaar cards issued or identity issued. More than 800 million smartphones are in use out of 1.3 or 1.4 billion population what we have. Now, when I last updated this, we had 13 billion monthly transactions in UPI. Okay. As of now, the latest update is 18 billion monthly UPI transactions. Right. What we also see is the government service delivery. One of the examples is what the government has provided, DigiLocker. There are 220 million DigiLocker accounts. What you also see is the amount of problems which are represented through online or digital channels which are being addressed by the government, 35 lakh grievances. And the digital infrastructure which is being set up by government. Okay, so you have around 30 megaraj data centers, right? Yeah, so 30 megaraj centers. What this fundamentally speaks about is the kind of transformation what we are going through. Okay, now the question is, do we understand this? Are we exploiting this kind of transformation what we are in? Are we getting our students to be part of this particular transformation and contribute and take this to the next level, right? Now, I also want to, that was just a teaser to understand what we are going through, okay? Now, what has this transformation resulted in? This transformation has resulted in something what we call the data volume, okay? Now, at some point of time, probably 10 years back, 15 years back, we had a problem of data sufficiency. Currently, the problem what we are facing is data explosion. We are not able to synthesize, consume, evaluate the data that is getting generated in some of the examples which I spoke about in the earlier slide. What we are also generating, I'm sure most of you will agree, and you can correct me if the number is understated. We are generating around 1 million STEM graduates annually, right? Science, technology, engineering, and maths, right? So which means that we are generating the talent, we are generating the skill set within the country, which is both catering to India as well as outside India. What we also have is something called as thriving ecosystem, technology ecosystem. Here we are referring to around 3,000 startups what you have. All companies like us, whether it is SaS, IBM, Microsoft, all these companies have R&D centers. For example, SaS has the largest R&D center in India in Pune, where we have around almost 500 to 600 people only in R&D center. The largest R&D center of SaS is in India, followed by China, which we recently closed in, and the next R&D center is in corporate headquarters, which is North Carolina. So in addition to this, the advantage what the current generation or what we all have at this point of time is government is tremendously pushing investments through various departments, across departments, by adopting AI, by adopting analytics, by exploiting that particular data. And if you see the number of initiatives what they have, whether it is Digital India, India in Mission, AI Centers of Excellence, I think the gentleman who spoke last around law, on November 5th, India has issued its draft AI governance guidelines. Okay, so the fundamental issue over there is that innovation is a key thing as part of AI, but the issue is that should we also bother about some contentious issue around that? Now it could be, as you said, it could be deepfakes, it could be copyright, a lot of issues that come in terms of when we are using AI. So India has come up with not more than I think 8 or 9 countries have come up with AI governance guidelines. India is definitely in the forefront of that. I think we also spoke about health, life sciences, agriculture, education. How can AI, the data that what we are generating, can be used to scale and social impact? I still see, a lot of primary schools. I mean, my own cousin teaches in one of the primary school with 1 to 5 classes, and a single teacher driving that entire school. Okay, and you also spoke about the disparity between the different segments of students, either by economic disparity or by their intellectual, understanding. But here is the clear economic disparity. A lot of sections of the society do not have access to what we are talking about, right? Again, this is all context setting, I mean, in terms of opportunity. So I spoke about the transformation, what we are going through, and I just gave a glimpse around, not completely glimpse around the opportunity, what we have across. And typically, if you look at last 30 to 40 years, I mean, probably mid 90s or early 90s, where we are seen as one of the cheapest source of labor in the context of providing services to IT companies, mostly to the European and US companies. I think from that particular cost arbitrage, we have moved to something called as competitive advantage, right? So what do we mean by that? So increasingly, as in case of SaS or IBM or any other global companies, there is a strategic shift from onshore to offshore talent hubs. The primary case is SaS, having R&D center in India. Most of the AI and ML applications that are developed in SaS, the source of that, the talent comes from India itself, based out of Pune, right? Second is we are not just looking at some services. Increasingly, if you see, there is a lot of emphasis coming from governments to focus on developing products rather than services. We can have services advantage only to a certain extent. So suddenly a resource coming from Vietnam can beat us because that could be much cheaper than India. So could be Sri Lanka or so could be Bangladesh. The issue is there is increasing focus in India to build products rather than just providing cheap services. What we also see is talent access. I mean, I spoke about 1 million STEM graduates emerging every year. Now, the point is, we also have brain drain that happened till recently, until this H1B thing that has come up. But otherwise, how do we essentially ensure that advantage of retention from premier to all colleges actually? Now, what we also see, this is again a recent phenomenon. So you must have heard about GCCs, Global Capacity Centers, Global Competency Centers. Increasingly, the global giants are setting up GCCs in India. It's a huge shot in the arm for us. The reason is it helps in avoiding the brain drain because these guys play. These are the multinational companies. Second is they give complex problems to solve actually. Okay. And I think what is also very important is government, public and private partnerships, private industry and education partnerships. There is tremendous room for this leverage, and there is also government is also spending a lot in terms of policy synergy so that they can encourage adoption AI and ML. Now that was again more in terms of context setting so that we know what is the opportunity, what we are going through. Now, let me just go to the use cases. Okay. Now, these use cases, what I'm referring to, I picked up something from banking, insurance, government. These use cases, are you able to hear me? Okay. These use cases are
I think you can use mine.
Are used by our banking customers. Are used by are used by insurance customers. Okay, are insurance customers. And I visited one of the government customers this morning. Our client. I'm going to talk about that particular use case. So these use cases are in action, used by our customers to solve complex problems. And again, I want to reiterate, most of these complex problems are not solved by senior or experienced people. These problems are being solved by a person with probably 1 year experience, 2 year experience, or Gen Z category only, right? Now let me start with these examples. I'm sure all of us have accounts, savings account, current accounts. Okay, this is an example of a fraud detection in a bank. Okay, so you hear about credit card fraud, debit card fraud, account takeover, a lot of calls what you get with respect to fake calls what you get, right? Deep fakes what you experience, all the effort to take over your OTPs, right? Now the point is, how does bank identify and detect and prevent these kind of frauds, right? So again, I'm giving you this because I'm talking of tremendous opportunity for people who specialize in your courses. The courses I see, typically people have MBA or engineering along with some humanities courses. How can they get that domain understanding by virtue of the courses what they do and have the initial mover advantage? I'm not saying that we will expect the expertise, but the initial mover advantage what they can have is understanding of some of these topics. So here is a bank where we're talking about they have deployed enterprise fraud management. How can you interact with a bank as a customer? You can essentially use a card in an ATM, you can use that in a POS, swiping machine, you can use that in e-commerce, right? And mobile banking, internet banking, UPI, go to a branch, take loans. Just imagine the number of businesses what a bank operates in. Each of these businesses is a good source of employment and getting that understanding by the individuals. And if you just want to give a view, on an average this bank has almost 8.5 crore transactions per day, right? It is humanly impossible for any bank to manually understand, evaluate these transactions, right? So what they do is, and again on a daily basis, per second transaction could be around 1700, or peak transaction could be 2500, meaning 2500 transactions per second, right? Now the point is this: how do they evaluate? How do essentially they take decision whether to let this transaction or to stop this transaction? So we have built models. These models could be debit card model, credit card model, or it could be internet banking model. It primarily looks into the customer behavior, past behavior, whether this customer belongs to senior citizen, this customer is part of the what you call a salaried employee, whether the customer is a business category. All that essentially elements are taken. It also takes into consideration the past transaction profile of that particular individual. In real time, in milliseconds, it evaluates and says that okay, this is possibly a likely fraud transaction or this is a fair transaction. And again, this is an example of a classic machine learning example. These models are built. What we can do is, I can't get into the specifics. I'm just giving you a glimpse of a use case. And some of these these models are built by the new age, the Gen Z category students actually. So this is example one. Now there is a lot of buzz around Gen AI. Okay, if you see this is built by an experienced a student from NMIMS who joined our team as an intern and then fresher, absorbed into a full-time employee. She has built this particular model where the question what the bank had, one of the largest banks in India had, is that banks have policies, procedures, banks are highly regulated entities. Banks are regulated by RBI, where they issues a lot of circulars. Through the circulars, they issue guidelines. These guidelines need to be adopted across different businesses. When I say different business, retail banking, corporate banking, and across the life cycle, whether it is account opening, transactions, and so on, right? Now, the question what the bank had is that, we have created policies based on a circular which was issued 5 years back. Now, there's a new circular that has come up, okay? Now, we wanted to understand whether our policy has completely incorporated the requirements of this new policy guideline or if there are any gaps. Now, one way is that, okay, I go through my previous policy, read it, and I also go through the new policy of RBI and understand the difference and so on. But just imagine then, given the number of business lines what a bank has, it is humanly impossible. The effort will be huge actually. And the question is, can we automate? Yes, that can be automated to a certain extent. And here is where this girl has built a Gen AI model, custom model, okay, where she looked into the the previous document, she looked into the RBI documents and then came up with a gap saying that, okay, this is what you have, this is what is new in the RBI document, and this is not covered, right? And so, and to the extent that, okay, what chapter, what paragraph, the biggest issue with GenAI, I'm sure some of you know, you must have heard a word called hallucination, right? Hallucination is that the model thinks that it is speaking right, but it is not, right? See, I mean, ultimately what you're trying to give it to that model, I mean, any of these meta model or any other model is that you are giving some text, asking it to learn and then reproduce a human thinking, right? That's what this is exactly doing. I will give you a classic example of a hallucination. This has come up recently in the newspaper also. Any tax agency in India, for example, GST or income tax agency, when they find some deficiency in tax filing, they issue a notice for the taxpayer to clarify and pay if that is liable, right? That's the basic thing what they do after you file the returns. Now just imagine in GST there are so many traders, okay? And if you have seen the GST manual, it runs into thousands of pages, okay? It is very difficult for an individual to have a mastery of that circular and based on some deficiency in the tax return, correlate to some section in this manual, act and section, and issue a notice, right? So we are doing the way we are doing from ages. Basically, it is dependent on somebody's individual understanding, right? But what it has done, somebody developed a model to go through this and understand this deficiency and issue a notice. The notice has gone to the taxpayer. Now the taxpayer has filed a complaint in the court. Okay, the complaint is that I am not liable to pay any tax because the section what is being referred in this notice does not exist in the act, which means that this model has done something on its own beyond the input that has been provided, right? So there is also a risk, as the gentleman said, we also need to be aware of the risk associated with this adoption of AI. So this is the second use case. I used two use cases from banking. The third use case is from an insurance company. In an insurance company, specifically life insurance company, they are on a yearly basis, they need to relook at their insured and evaluate the health of that particular insured and check whether based on the diagnostic reports, health reports associated with the insured, whether the insured, the risk need to be reassessed. Risk meaning there is a deterioration in the health of the insured, which means that the insured may have to pay more premium or he may have to be provided with alternate product. That's what they need to do. That's a business problem. But issue is that they need to look at 4 million diagnostic reports, 40 lakhs. It's humanly impossible. And each diagnostic report you have, CBC, you have lipid profile, you have, so many sections, right? It is impossible. And each of them has, acceptable level, different buckets, right? So again, one of our intern has developed a model, basically using one of the, trained one of the GenAI model, generative AI model, primarily looked at the diagnostic reports, and these are all diagnostic reports are paper. Okay, but I need data from the paper. So basically we used extraction using OCR. We picked up, there are different sections within the, within the report, picked up that particular, and then essentially identified the risky individuals. Suddenly a person has developed deterioration in the heart functioning. So we identified those risky individuals and automatically it generates a communication. The model generates a communication to the insured saying that, by the way, with the reports what you submitted, you need to look at an alternate product which will benefit you. Second, it also tells, given that there is some issue with respect to your heart or kidney or any other organ of the body, okay, you need to visit these set of hospitals and these doctors. So it is also identifying the treatment options that can be provided and then essentially tracking the customer engagement. right? Now, for someone to do this 4 million diagnostic reports and run through this entire life cycle, it's going to be very, very costly proposition. But this entire thing has been automated. But I am also suggesting I will always use a caution to each one of these very, very fascinating examples. We also need to look at the hallucination risk around this, right? So this is a communication. What it says is that, okay, there are, we looked at these things, look at these, aspects, and then, go to this particular doctor and so on, actually. Now, the fifth example, this is one more use case, okay? Typically, when you look at, again, this is what we solved for some of our customers, since some of, audience has some healthcare background. So the issue here is that based on the chest X-rays, okay, some of the state governments, pay for the treatment as part of the schemes based on the level of deterioration in the chest X-rays, actually, right? The white sponge that happens in the X-ray reports, right? Now again, here is the problem. The solution segment here is the deep learning. Earlier I mentioned about GenAI. This is the deep learning, where we look into the images, diagnostic images in this case, and where we essentially identify presence or absence of a disease here. Now it could be TB or it could be any other chest disease, actually. Now the example here is, for example, we pass these images and give an indication that what is the percentage of this cotton structure in that particular image. So here if it is 15%, over there it is almost 100% gone. So here it is 0%. So just imagine again, the people, the doctors who need to examine these images, evaluate these images to the extent of few hundreds on a daily basis. It is impossible for them to look at each and every image, hundreds of these images, and evaluate these images. So what we do is we train the model and ask them to come up with the level of extent of cotton structure, actually, right? Again, this is developed by an intern, not a 20-year experience like me, actually, right? Now extending this, in Rajasthan, if you know, wherever there's a desert, based on the wind, there will be sand dunes, actually. So the silicosis essentially, what is the metal? Silica, right? Silica essentially, flows through the air, and when inhaled, it will directly impact your, chest, right, or lungs. So the question again here was that early detection of silica impact or silicosis, and if it is, what is the extent of this impact? Okay, again the branch of AI/ML here is deep learning, right? Now, we spoke about a bank example, we spoke about an insurance example, we spoke about a healthcare example. Now, this is, if you look at this point of time, the elections that are being won, okay, slightly a sensitive statement, are not won by predominantly selling the programs or selling the achievements. They are primarily sold by selling the benefits, right? Distribution of benefits, okay? Now this is one of the state, again this is an example of somebody used a word called data governance, okay? Now this is a state where they have 12.5 crore beneficiaries, 21 departments, and 1 lakh crore distribution of benefits that happens on a yearly basis, right? So till now, in any state, the beneficiary, okay, has to apply for a benefit from the government, right? That's the typical process. But governments are increasingly looking at being reactive to proactive. Given that I know people in this particular room, assuming that all of you are the beneficiaries, given your age profile, given your economic background, given other aspects of socio-economic parameters, what are those benefits you are eligible for? moving from reactive to proactive offering of benefits actually. So again, what is that we are looking at? We are looking at citizen data, we are looking at socioeconomic data with respect to those citizens, and then qualifying them for the benefits and doing a reach out, okay, saying that you are eligible for these schemes. This is a tremendous example of creating that social impact from a government actually. Again, the lot of work here, it may not be much of AI/ML, it is predominantly around data itself actually, data governance. Now, one more, this is a law enforcement. Here is a, I'm sure we have this dial 100, dial 112, all right? So primarily the objective over there is we call these numbers for an emergency so that they can attend us, right? Now this is an example where a state government has rolled out dial 112 for any emergency, attendance actually. So they have 4,000 ERVs, emergency response vehicles, primarily police, right? And then the biggest issue is that where do they place these vehicles? There is a constraint with respect to number of vehicles. They cannot have unlimited number of vehicles, right? So the question was that how do I place a vehicle in a location, which location should I place so that time to respond to a crime is minimized, right? Now, so when this gave this problem, okay, so we were breaking our heads for us to identify the location of a vehicle so that the time can be minimized, okay. We need to know where will the crime happen and what time the crime will happen, right? We need to know where will the crime happen, which location is crime likely to happen, and what time will the crime happen. And that is where, and again, crimes could be petty crimes to very serious crimes, right? So we were breaking our heads, Prashant, through his research, we picked up some paper which is written by a couple of Chinese guys, very, very good paper, actually, research paper, and we replicated that paper's, analytics into our business problem, and it solved the problem, right? So this is in motion at this point of time by this agency. Now look at the impact. In 2022, it was taking 14 minutes for them to reach the location of the crime. In 2024, it was taking only 5 minutes in the urban location. In rural response time in 2022 was 18 minutes, 2024 for 11 minutes. In specifically crimes relating to women, okay, which are very sensitive, from 16 minutes to 7 minutes, okay. Again, one of the very good example where it has created an impact in the society, right? And again, the question is, did we solve these problems earlier before we attempting? Need not be actually, right? But ultimately, we had to figure out, the science behind these things. Somebody also mentioned about science, okay? As I started with, the science behind these things sometimes need some basic understanding of, as I said, algebra, probability, and calculus. These are three things which I test when I interview any individual, either for intern or full-time employee. I spoke about, this is one use case again in the sales department. The reason why I'm sharing all these use cases, it is quite possible that you can essentially reach out to these departments, or we could also liaison with you in terms of taking people to solve these kind of problems. Right? Some of these problems could be repetitive, some of these problems could be very, very innovative. Again, one of the state, the biggest issue with any state is being able to maximize the revenue on GST, but however, there is tremendous amount of evasion that happens. You will keep very often coming across in newspaper, hundreds of crores or 50s of crores have been identified as evasion, and it has been caught. Even today, this morning, I was looking at one of the news. Now, again, what we looked at here is we looked at the taxpayer, the commodities, what they look at. We looked at the kind of, from buying and selling, who are they dealing with, okay, and the history of the tax filing. Looking at this basic information, we could build a model and that's a machine learning model. And the impact is that in the year one, they could identify, and raise a demand of 2,100 crores, and they could do a recovery of 1,100 crores. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that sometimes these problems are not very complicated actually. It just requires joining the data and doing some recon and coming up with a suggestion actually, or recommendation. So this is an example again for a sales tax department. By the way, this is an example what I was talking about, where LLMs was used to generate a notice. While we can be very happy about it, but the issue is there is a risk of hallucination here. Okay, this is something which I like a lot and very, very interesting. So supposing a farmer who was just crawling through his farm, okay, strangely finds some marks on the leaves of the crop, and he does not understand what is it, right? All that what he needs to do is take a photograph or do a voice record, okay, or do a description, okay, in the native language and send it to someone, right? And just imagine, based on that, if there can be a recommendation coming back to the farmer within minutes, saying that there is an issue with respect to your crop is infested with this kind of a problem, you need to attend or administer some kind of medicine or fertilizer to it. If that recommendation can come in minutes, that will be a tremendous advantage to the farmer. And by the way, this is happening. Now, the reason why early detection of this problem is required, the kind of damage a farmer will realize if the problem is detected in 1 week versus 3 weeks versus probably 2 months. I think the impact will be very, very severe. In the 1 week, it could be probably a 5% damage, or it could amplify the moment with time. So from that perspective, this becomes very, very important. Again, we are using combination of LLM, image, text. So this is a complete demo that is available. But so if you see here, and this is in Telugu, in a particular district, particular town. Now just imagine government, the agriculture department gets such kind of problems from different farmers in a particular district, taluk, village, okay. Then they can classify if that problem is prevalent in whole of that particular region and take larger measures, very, very proactively. So this is sustainable agriculture, soil nutrition, crop recommendation, all with respect to agriculture. And the last one, this is very, very interesting. So one of the state governments approached us asking for identification of big cat, meaning whether it is tiger, leopard, what was the third one?
Tiger and leopard.
Tiger and leopard, right? So they have installed night vision cameras across the forest. So the problem statement was, okay, what is the animal that has been captured in the night camera, right? Whether it is tiger or leopard or any other animal. Second is whether it is that T24, the conventions that are used for naming the tiger. Is this T24 which came yesterday has come the same, or is it following the same path every day? Okay. Or are two tigers, male and female, seen together, which means that they could be mating. Or a tiger seen with its cubs, okay? Tiger seen with its cubs, which means that it's all the more critical. Point is animal, specific animal, and the condition in it is found actually. And second, one more important aspect is whether this animal is moving across the periphery of that entire jungle, which means that there could be impact with people. So this was a problem statement, right? So now, if you see here on the right side, if you see here, that's the image what we get. That's the image what we get. Now we don't know whether it is tiger, whether it is leopard, because we can't see any marks over there. That's just a image, right? Now, looking at the orientation of the body, looking at whether the tail is lifted or whether the tail is stooping down, or the way it walks. Okay, a lot of these parameters are taken, okay, to determine whether. So if you see here on a real-time basis, based on the image, we are able to identify whether it is a tiger or a leopard. Okay. Again, I want to repeat here. These problems, 95% of these problems are not solved by senior analytics professionals. These problems are solved by, probably with a person with 0 or probably less than 1 or 2 years experience. All these algorithms, all these techniques, okay. So with experience, we're also boxed with imagination. Our imagination is boxed, but with the reason why we specifically picked up all these college graduates in their final year is that their imagination is not limited. So we give a problem to them, they essentially look at the various ways to solve this problem and come up with the solution. And most of these things are in production. When I say production, the organizations, government departments, banks, insurance companies are using on real-time basis in their organizations. Right?
What is this 0.52, sir?
That probability. Okay, so the moment, so it is based on the way it is moving, based on the structure, the dimensions of that. On a real time, every step it is taking, it is evaluating whether that is a tiger, whether it is a leopard. Probability 0.52, 0.7, 0.8, 90% chance that this is a tiger. So that's why it is. Now, in this image with this structure, it is not sure. They are saying 0.5. 0.5, I am not sure. It's a probability. But when I look at this image, so here it is very confident at this tiger, 0.8 probability, 0.9 probability that it is tiger. Right? Again, so this is one which I am talking about. Last one, this is one which the customer is a government department which is there in Hyderabad only. So there are 2.7 lakh crore beneficiaries, 1436 hospitals, 1800 claims. The distribution of claims is roughly 3,000 crores. Right? Now the biggest issue what they had was the hospitals which were treating these patients who get paid by the government for the treatment that is being done. There were some rogue hospitals. So how were they essentially benefiting or tripping the system? Okay, so they take my chest X-ray. Okay, they claim for me for the treatment cost with the government. They recycle my chest X-ray to you. They say that okay, this professor, this X-ray which belongs to you, and so the treatment cost is so and so, and that's what is claimed. So duplicate X-ray images, duplicate brain map documents, duplicate CT reports, right? So they just change the name and send the same thing, right? So point is, again, mostly what is used here is a deep learning. Okay, and then essentially we detected evasion of, identified those hospitals, risk for those hospitals come back, right? Okay, so that was the last one. I just want to give a glimpse. How did we do, and probably answer some of the questions, right? So how did we solve all these problems, right? Solving any of these analytical problems, there is a journey. The journey is, right, look into the data, look into the sufficiency of the data, look into the objective of the problem, and figure out the technique, whether it is, as simple as whether it is a regression technique or whether it is a decision data. We develop the models and we deploy the insights. Insights is, okay, by the way, look at this, look at that. This is the insight, right? Now, so the capability is what we offer. Now, irrespective of the platform, there was a lot of mention around tools and technologies, right? I just want to reiterate, understanding of the tool is not important. Okay, the conceptual understanding, the problem definition, the process is important. Tool is a means, tool is not the end actually, right? Whether you use X tool or Y tool, I mean, whether you use C language or C++ or Java, or I think they're all means, they're not the end actually, right? Unfortunately, the way we project in our courses is that's an end, right? And I think some of you also emphasized that what is written in the books needs to essentially manifest or extrapolate into the real world examples, right? And all the examples, case studies, what I spoke about are the manifestation. And you also raised the point around data not being available, right? If you go to india.data.gov, what is that, Prashant?
India.data.gov.
Right. Now, the government has placed a lot of data sets over there to for the open use, so that you can essentially build your models. What we also offer, the university edition, right? The university edition is provided to you free of cost. Okay, any student can download it and use it. There's no constraint around that. You could also use it, right? So, but from our perspective, some of you also mentioned around students find it very difficulty, or we should not spend time on programming. That is also fair. Probably should, as I mentioned, should we look at means, should we look at end? So in which case, the SaS tool is completely a GUI driven. So in some of the regulatory institutions where they need transparency, where they need ease of use, quick adoption, also reduce the risk of faculty attrition. If too much is dependent on one individual, there is of course a risk. So this platform mitigates all those risks. There's no programming, what you need to do over there. Okay? Anybody can pick up very, very fast. The focus is not the tool here. The focus is problem statement and the output or outcome, right? So I think we should look at how do we expose this to all the gentlemen here, so that they can really understand. And again, what you also see over there is statistics. Most the fundamental things which I ask is, okay, with the students is, explain in your words the descriptive statistics, what you can arrive on simple data, mean, median, mode, central tendency measures, standard deviation. Over there I don't look at textbook definition. I ask them, okay, go and explain on the board, right? So just to conclude, I may have, from our perspective, I mean, most of the folks in this particular group, we look at algebra, probability, calculus. These are the core things. Okay. When somebody says that, okay, in probability, I know binomial distribution. So I simply ask them, give a real life example of a binomial distribution, and most of the people fail. They give a very good, there's a binary event, probability of happening events, formula and all of that. That is fine, but I think the translation of that binomial distribution, okay, is where we find the issue actually. The second thing is when we give the projects to interns, we look at their problem solving capability. Okay? Problem solving is typically when you have all the information and the problem definition is very clear, it is very easy to solve the problem. But in the real life situation, okay, we may also need to figure out what is the problem, right? And what I've seen is with some of the students, when we don't give the problem, the kind of anxiety what they demonstrate, okay, is very, very high actually, right? So application exposure, problem solving and analytical thinking is something what we typically examine for. Communication and team play. So recently we recruited a girl with double gold medalist, academically very, very strong. But the biggest issue was these two. Okay, so these are the skill sets what we also import, because as an individual, we need to work with multiple people within the organization. We need to develop interpersonal skills, team building, that is very, very important. So I think based on, so it has been 4 or 5 years since we started, recruiting, freshers into. Typically, we look at more than 10 years, but in the last 4 or 5 years, we started recruiting freshers from colleges. Now, the biggest issue what we are here is we learned as a company, okay, is that we expect same level of expertise, okay, from an experienced person versus a college graduate, a fresher. So our learning is been that we need to run some orientation. Those orientations, I think someone in the audience also mentioned about how do you prepare the student to face the corporate situations. So I think that orientation from campus to corporate is also very, very important. Right? So broadly, this is what I wanted to cover. It's very difficult with the time what has been given to cover diverse topics, sometimes getting into the details, and sometimes getting into the market perspective, and also getting into the detail of the skill set what we look at when we recruit. I tried covering as much as possible to primarily reflect upon the opportunity in AI/ML. Second is what kind of real life use cases what we deal with, and third of course is what is that we look at it. Right? I'm happy to take any questions. If you have questions.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. So typically, you are expecting interns during their course of graduation or later?
Sorry, interns too?
And it can happen virtually?
No, not really virtually, because we are also, as part of intern, our objective is also to groom them as a team player, look at, improve, work on their communication, okay, multiple aspects. The idea being whether after employment, whether they work remotely or in the office, right? They should be able to handle both the things.
Okay. See, sir, this
Now,
is
for
a basic
how much
challenge.
time our paths are okay?
Again, I understand. With the students, some of the students, what we are facing, they have 4 months, 3 months, and then they say that okay, we'll come in the morning, we'll go to the college, okay, we come in the evening. I think typically we accommodate those things. Because their primary job is to complete their course, right, and also equip themselves with the internship. So those facilitations we make, but typically 6 months.
How do you
Have
source
you made a manual of your 12 cases, sir?
The cases which I spoke, there are many more cases. There is, I don't know.
Source.
We
From
can
you.
create and give it actually. So there's nothing confidential about these things.
Yeah.
Okay. Just that I compiled and shared with you. We
Yeah.
can share that.
How do you source the interns?
Ninely.
Sorry.
How do you source those interns?
How do we source those interns? Typically, what we do is SaS is taught. SaS is part of the academics in quite a few courses across multiple colleges. So what I do is I go to that college where SaS is taught, because that gives me an opportunity, and somebody has invested in learning SaS. I go to that particular college and we pick up. Second is we also announce in our website the internship program. For example, probably in 1 or 2 months, we will have an announcement on their website, on our website. Students can apply.
That means you have a contract with the university or college.
No contract. There's no obligation on our side or your side. But what we typically do is, wherever SaS is taught as part of either MBA or their engineering courses or graduation courses, we typically pick up.
So as an intern, you support them any other thing? What is,
As an intern, do we support?
what other support you give? They spend 5-6 months with you.
We are offering one STEM MBA program with NJIT US. So
How
we
much
also want
stipend?
I cannot disclose in this forum, sir, but I can tell you.
Very attractive. it is.
Very attractive. It will take care even for a remote. Some people actually come from outside, Chennai or Bangalore to Mumbai. So it helps them to get an accommodation which is very costly in Mumbai and have their living expenses.
So just adding to my question, is hybrid not possible? Because see, most of my students are on virtual internships, and that too mostly even they are able to get a freelance internships even from US, UK, etc. They are able to get it.
Yeah.
So and students are mostly available on Saturdays and Sundays. You understand the way culture of US. I got surprised when I came to know even US companies are working with the students on Saturdays and Sundays and extracting the work during their free time.
Yes.
Is what actually going on now.
Yes.
This is something that has begun and people are doing. In that way, because no graduate is under our control once they complete their engineering, different ambitions, different aspirations.
Correct.
What I
See, I think, again, what I said in the last slide which I mentioned, I'm looking at a combination of skill sets to be developed, worked upon, the integration, right? If the person is in office, what he is part of my customer. So what are the calls we are making for the customer? He is part of that. We will take that person as part of our customer engagements. That experience is tremendous. One customer meeting that, the fact that I was listening to all of you, it was an eye-opener in terms of understanding firsthand, but in India,
We are talking India.
If properly training can be done.
so what we have two cycles, and again we do it across multiple disciplines. One is customer advisory, the second is customer success, third is sales, fourth is technical support. So yeah, we essentially pass them through different
all these
all these things.
Offline is better, sir.
Offline,
Yeah.
they will
Because
not be productive, sir.
The person who is actually taking interest, he will not be doing so much, dedication. That is the main problem.
Okay.
Sir, are you open for some association with the institutions for running certain programs? Like for example, STEM MBA or MBA in data science or
Yes.
analytics or so?
Yes,
Some association possible?
so currently we are working with 20 or plus universities in the country.
Okay.
I'll share with you a couple of videos as of now. One, because I'll just share one of them whom we work with. A second video I might share about after 30 minutes. So this is what we actually do, just because association is one of the
Do
videos.
we have any LMS in place?
The Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow,
LMS.
provides students with a broad business management education, with programs in finance, marketing, operations management, and more. IIM Lucknow is a truly global management school, and the SaS Education Analytical Suite powers one of the most popular courses within the MBA curriculum.
The objective of integrating SaS in the MBA curriculum was twofold. The first one was to get students to acquire hands-on skills and to work with and get the most out of data. While the second one was to help me achieve the learning objectives of giving a conceptual understanding of business analytics from a strategic business perspective to the students.
Professor Kumar and his colleagues were particularly impressed with SaS Enterprise Miner's drag-and-drop user interface.
It makes it easy for the analytic professionals and students to not only get hands-on exposure to SaS, but to understand the entire data mining process.
With the demand for analytics professionals at an all-time high, the opportunity to explore SaS can be quite valuable for Professor Kumar's students.
By acquiring hands-on skills on SaS, my students can not only work with and get the most out of data, but they also have a very clear conceptual understanding of business analytics from a strategic business perspective. And that's why SaS and analytics opens up a number of career opportunities for my students in.
Yeah, and I'm just going to keep this talking about a lot of life sciences use cases, but I'm not directly going to be talking about the use cases because Dr. RK has already given a lot of information, a lot of examples across a lot of industries, which is BFSI, which is banking, financial services, insurance, and as well as healthcare, right? So we do not want to spend the last 30 minutes, 40 minutes, again talking about use cases. So rather I would give you examples, starting off with my own personal example. And I would like to start off with a statement. I'm very happy to be brought up at the right time. Thanks to my parents for giving me birth at the right time, where I did not have to think, they did not have to think what I had to study. I belong to a generation where they were like, okay, you know what, the kids will figure it out. All that we need to shove it in their head is, you're 18, you're kicked out of the house. You have to fend for yourself. You have to earn your own stipend. You have to earn your own pocket money. The only three things you get from us is food, clothing, and shelter. And maybe if you want to study a little bit more, do anything fancy, then we might think about sponsoring your education if it has a decent return on investment. So what me and my sister used to do, we used to go to school, 8 hours of school, morning school, so you're at school like from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., 2 p.m. as a max, you're back home, you're watching cartoon because your parents are not there at home. Then just before they come back, you're out on the road playing because they don't want to see you in front of the idiot box. They definitely did not have computers, we did not have phones, so we had zero exposure to tech. And then around 7, we are back home, we are done with our homework, eating our dinner, pushing off to sleep. That was our school life. That surprisingly was our college life as well. And when it came to choosing a particular stream, especially if I have to give you my personal example, I come with a background of where my mother's side of the family is predominantly army, and I have 2 folks on her side of the family who are academicians from NCRT. And then my dad's side of the family are complete film industry people, right? Now, you have 2 extremely different industries marrying. They've got zero clue what their children are going to do. They've got no clue because one is going to try to push you into getting into the armed forces and the other one is going to push you into getting into the film industry or probably academics, and then you are not really going to pick up on anything at all because you have 3 industries that's clashing. They cannot decide what IT is or what analytics is and how do you want to go about from there. Right, so then my elder sister decided, hey, I want to become a journalist, and she's one of the very good Telangana journalists as of today. She works with Times of India, hats off to her. Right from day one, she was like, I want to do journalism. Like she got born and then like, journalism, that's it. It came to me, I wanted to do veterinary science. Then sometimes I wanted to become a psychologist. Sometimes I wanted to become a musician. And then finally, when I could not figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I just ended up joining economics and statistics as a graduation degree. That too humanities. And then from there, again I did not know what to do because when I picked up economics and statistics back in the day, my mom used to tell me, or my dad used to tell me, a very famous saying which probably we tell our kids, or you all might be telling your kids, which is you should not be a jack of all trades and you should be a master of one. Now here, when I'm studying economics and statistics as a bachelor's degree, I am neither a master of mathematics, of economics, neither I am a master of statistics. And then later on, I found SaS. And ever since then, since I finished graduation, I know Shubham very well, and that's how I got associated with the education team. I studied SaS from them. They did not come to us. No, I studied from Mumbai University. They never had this event for us. Absolutely not. We had to go to them. As students, we had to convince our parents, say, listen, SaS is a big thing. Let's go. Let's do something. Pretty expensive. Now the prices are like dirt cheap. If I have to have someone recommending to go learn SaS, and if I know that a university, like to name some of the few, I have personally trained at Guru Nanak University. Then there have been a couple of institutes in Dehradun as well where I have trained students on machine learning or deep learning, which is image analysis and stuff. So when I went there to those universities, I was very happy because students didn't really have to think. Who did the thinking for them? The parents. Who did the thinking for them? Professors like y'all. If I had professors back in the day who thought, like the way y'all are thinking, who are sitting in a room to really try and figure out what should our students do, and being asked by a question, who are you to deliberate on what our future should be, or what our future of education should be? Yeah, I'll be very happy, man. Probably today I might be sitting at NASA. And probably not just doing clinical research, or probably not just standing here and talking. Maybe I would have done something really different, which would have made me feel very good about my career, right? So you're looking at a shift where we have noticed SaS now exists across different industries. And since I come from life sciences, I can tell you, I did my master's from Madhapur, which was, we had a temporary setup of Public Health Foundation of India there. So I went from humanities to masters in science, and masters in science was in health informatics. Again, the whole world turned around and told me, saying that don't be an idiot. And trust me when I say this, I used to tell them back then, saying that there will come one day in the future where a jack of all trades and not being a master of one is going to have a lot of importance. And that's exactly what all of you all are doing here in the room, especially when we talk about any of these key takeaways. So if I have to associate any of these key takeaways with life sciences as an industry, with some of the folks here have mentioned about the College of Science or radiology, or when you're talking about pharmacy, right? So when you talk about life sciences, I'm not really talking about healthcare here, I'm talking about life sciences particularly. You would, during my time, I would expect someone from pharmacy, from B Pharm or M Pharm, to know in and out of medicines, to know in and out of manufacturing of those medicines, in and out of logistics, in and out of warehousing of those medicines. And then what is going to be my future? My future would be, I go open a medical store. I go get a license to open a pharmacy, or I become a medical rep, or I go work with a pharmaceutical company, or I get into clinical research. But you as professors today, you're not just limiting your thought to only that one mainstream line. If I had that kind of an advantage back then, probably I could have done much more. And that's something that we are allowing our kids today to think about, right? So the concept of master of one doesn't really exist anymore. You are basically telling your kids, listen, you have to be a jack of all trades. You have to know clinical research, as an example. If you know clinical research, you need to know the laws that are associated with clinical research. If the company that you're going to work for uses AI, you need to know how that AI model has been built or how that AI model has been developed. If you want to use that AI, apart from just knowing it, you also need to know about the legalities of it, like how the gentleman at the back had mentioned. Now, when I talk about legalities of usage of AI in clinical research, I'm basically talking about HIPAA laws, which was the privacy laws that he had mentioned. I'm talking about PII laws. If I don't have this information as a student, I would not be able to figure it out. I'll not be able to use AI. So forget about using AI. I do not have the foundational skill sets like Dr. RK had mentioned earlier, right? So even the previous slide, that was a closing slide of Dr. RK, you notice that he's not talking about just one skill there. He's not only talking about maths and statistics. He's not talking only about soft skills. Like again, in school we used to have career counseling, career guidance, where you would get this fancy, smart-looking career counselor. If it's a lady, really attractive. If it's a man, really handsome. So you feel attracted to that person and you want to talk or you want to ask questions. So it so happened that I asked a question saying that, hey, you know what? I want to become a politician one day. And I was big into politics back in college. I used to really love it, coming from Mumbai. Oh, politics was amazing. And then I came to Hyderabad for my master's after I saw KCR? Yeah, his height was enough for me.
Please tell something about health and life sciences.
I will, sir, I will.
You are telling your personal problem.
It's not personal problem, sir. The reason why I'm saying this is because it is always important to understand, given that all of you all spoke about AI, you all said that we want to learn how to use AI. AI is not everything. You also need to understand the background of it. You also need to understand what goes into it. And that is exactly what at SaS we are doing, right? So a standard response is in terms of the questions which you'll ask. So a couple of questions that you'll ask, starting off with the very first one. Fear of replacement, human in loop. When you talk about life sciences, that's never going to happen. You would never get replaced by an AI model. The reason being why, as an example, when you talk about clinical research, when you have to submit your case study reports to the FDA body for approvals of your drugs in order to market them, you need to have a human in the loop. You need to have either the reports being developed by AI or validated by AI. You cannot have development and validation both taken care by AI or by a machine. Right? Now in this case, you will expect that human either to know AI, or you would need to know how that program was developed in order to design those reports, what is the statistics which goes behind those reports, what are p-values, what's the difference between clinical significance and statistical significance. These are certain things that's expected by that person to know. Again, you're talking about a jack of all trades, right? So you do need to have domain expertise, and you need to have a little bit of knowledge on AI, because you already do have a lot of people developing AI models. Probably by the time these kids pass out, even if you're talking of the most recent batch, which is going to pass out as of next year, March. And if things go good for me and my personal team at SaS, probably in the clinical research space, we would have already had a patent on the AI front. And this is a work in progress. And it's a combination of 3 different teams. One person who works under customer advisory, the lady sits in Germany. There's me, who is more into the domain. So I understand more about the clinical research, I understand more about the legalities, like in terms of what is the CEDAS submission laws, what is a case study report, what all is the content into it. And then I have 3 folks from the R&D team in Pune who know in depth about AI. So all 3 of us put together over the past 1 year, we started this project last year in October 2024. We are still continuing it. We are going to file for the patent probably at the max by January 2025. So if we file for the patent, if the patent comes through, if SaS is the first in order to have this kind of a patent, then you are looking at the entire Madhapur road, which is your BMS, Novartis, Sanofi, Amgen, J&J. These are all the customers that I personally work with, and all of them are SaS users. All of them are moving towards a newer platform of SaS, which is Wire. They are all going to have these AI algorithms in place, right? So trying to understand the working of it in an example of a clinical research space would be very important. Secondly, so that's a human in the loop. You're talking about having to know domain expertise as well. You're also having to know information, good enough information about statistics. You're also having to know good information about programming. And if you're able to do this in one particular area, if you are a life sciences graduate, you can work with real world evidence as an example. You can work, which is basically epidemiology, right? So your COVID analysis, that's nothing but RWE. And when you talk about RWE, given the nature of the data, you will also have another algorithm which comes into place which generates a lot of synthetic data. So again, in life sciences, when you talk about dose escalation studies, you talk about dose finding studies, you do have a lot of synthetic data that plays a major role here. Because if I do not have that synthetic data, it is very unethical for me to ask lab reports from numerous number of patients. I cannot do that without having them enrolled onto a clinical trial. But your dose escalation, your dose finding studies are all prior to a clinical trial. They do not happen during phase 1, phase 2. It happens prior to the clinical trial, prior to you enrolling patients. So in such a situation, if you want to generate lab reports following a particular protocol or following a particular therapeutic area and a molecular definition and a molecular impact, you are basically talking about generating these lab reports, generating artificial lab reports that mimic a specific case. Right, so that's another application of AI. And it is not just AI. So AI is a very fancy term to use. You've already heard a lot of terms since 4 p.m. onwards, generative AI, agentic AI. What's the bottom line of all of it? It is just networking analysis. It is just machine learning algorithms. It is generative additive networks. Right, so how do you understand all of that? We have, some of you all have mentioned about developing large language models or developing small language models. Where is the infrastructure in order to develop a model? Do I want to use a model? Yes, I can use it. Like the way I use a regression algorithm, the way I use a decision tree, the way I use descriptive analysis like mean, median, mode. That's how I use a large language model like Meta AI or GPT-4. Correct? It is these companies, these open source companies, that had that kind of infrastructure in order to build it, and that's why it's become so popular. Right? So the bottom line of it is, again, ask the right question. If you ask the right question, like Sir asked the right question. He was like, okay, you know what? Tell us more about the use cases. I was coming into that. That's not a problem. It's fine. Question was valid. Correct? I was coming into it, but I was getting carried away as well. I was trying to give more of a background information because I was like, hey, what? Doctor has already spoken about some 10 to 12 use cases for you all, and he's covered healthcare as well in there. Right? So these are certain things that become very important, and I covered pretty much all of it. Just one last thing that I wanted to showcase to you all is, when you talk about health and life sciences, if you really want to know about how SaS plays a major role in this area, how your students can benefit from it, then we have a conference which is coming in February 2026. We have the entire life sciences team who's going to be in Hyderabad from 19th to the 21st of February. So the conference is named as PHUSE, P-H-U-S-E. It's a pharmaceutical organization conference that happens, for the first time it's happening in Asia Pacific, over 3 days. And we would be talking over 6 different applications of SaS in the life sciences space. Okay, so you can, if you're able to enroll your students as attendees, I know the ticket prices are high, but then there are student discounts that's available on the PHUSE website. There is one specific stream which is known as a professional development stream, and SaS is also doing a hands-on workshop which is going to be very specific to data analytics and AI. So your students can come there, you can have a look at what is it that's there in it for SaS and learn from it. And you will also get to see the integration with open source as well, which is also a very important point, that SaS appreciates or embraces. Alright, so this is one of the most important programs that I personally developed. Not taking credit for it, but then it took me a year to develop this particular program. It went through multiple revisions because we kept getting a lot of feedbacks from the industry. So here when I talk about industry, I'm basically talking about the pharmaceutical, the big pharma in Hyderabad. Like, so my clients, such as I personally work for Johnson & Johnson, BMS, Novartis, GSK. These are some of my customers, Roche. Yeah, so these are all the big pharmas that have their global capability centers in India. GSK has it in Bangalore, and the other 3 are in Hyderabad. J&J is also there in Bangalore. So over discussions with them, over training their students, and I trained like about 20 to 30 people from AstraZeneca as well, which was worldwide. And that was done over 2 batches. And after training them, after the feedback that we received, over a period of 1 year, the program was continuously edited to make it a 150 to 180 hours with about 3 certifications in it, 2 to 3 certifications, 1 optional certification, but a minimum of 2 certifications in it. So in this particular curriculum, you are not just covering, like I said, you're trying to have the jack of all trades here, right? So the essential statistics that a student needs to know in order to apply those algorithms to clinical research. That's what's taught here. The second thing what it is taught is how do you submit these reports to the FDA. So there are a lot of guidelines, a lot of regulations that have to be followed. You have something known as a CDISC body. The CDISC body has a set of guidelines for submission known as the study data tabulation model and the analysis data model. They come under a generalized concept of bridge, or they come under something known as an operational data model. If you do not know these guidelines, it's very difficult for you to get a clinical programmer. Like if you want to get into the IT side, or if you want to become a biostatistician, it's a little difficult for you to get into that area of work when it comes to clinical research. You can be a researcher, no doubt about it, but if you want to get onto the IT side of it, it will be a little difficult because it will need you to know a couple of programming languages to start off with, and along with that, how do you map it to the essential guidelines? So the only requirement here is the student should have some basic knowledge of what a clinical trial is or what clinical research is all about. Over and above this, the essential guidelines is something that we impart as knowledge. The programming skills of SaS is something that we impart, and the statistics also, the know-how, a little bit of theory along with the application of it is something that is imparted to the student over 150 to 180 hours with 2 compulsory certifications. So this makes a student industry ready, and all that they have to do is get into the company, undergo a formal, sorry, I won't use the term formal, undergo a training for formality to get a certificate saying that you know the concepts. It's more like a validation. Everything that happens in life sciences needs a validation. If you don't have a validation, you're going nowhere with it. Okay, so that process becomes much easier, and then you go ahead and have a full-time job with it. To just give you some numbers, I run workshops on SaS programming with BMS. I had 2 earlier this year. Both were on as simple as creating visualizations for their new intakes every year. I have one coming up again on an advanced topic of visualizations probably towards the end of this year or early next year. BMS is Bristol Myers Squibb. BMS has about 100 to 150 statistical programmers who work on SaS. Some of them, especially the biostatisticians, also do work on open source languages, which is R. When you talk about Novartis has offshored their entire Swiss and Basel set of statistical programmers to India. So people have lost jobs there, and the Global Capability Center has got a job here. Novartis is known as a university for statistical programmers, so people get groomed at Novartis because they have fabulous grooming programs, and then they move to across the road, which is BMS, or probably just a couple of buildings down the road, which is J&J or Sanofi or Amgen. When you talk about J&J has about 50 statistical programmers that work on SaS. If you're talking about GSK in Bangalore, GSK has about 200 programmers that work on SaS. So when you talk about these numbers are pretty large, and every year they still recruit students. The only gap which they have, and the gap where I step in, is because the universities or the places where they recruit from, they do not have SaS onto their curriculum sometimes, and that gap is identified. So when the gap is identified, if they need specific topics for training, they then give us a call, and then we step in there and we educate them on those topics. So that is the last point that I wanted to mention. Open for questions.
These programs are virtual or classroom programs?
Both. So the ones which we run over the weekends, it's known as public training. They are weekend trainings, which is 4 hours.
Get the training of these programs.
Sorry?
If any individual wish to take the program.
Yes, you can. You can contact SaS directly,
Okay.
and he gets a chance. He or she gets a chance to take this program online as well.
No, it's not like that. Do you have any office or anything in Hyderabad?
We don't. We don't have an office in Hyderabad.
So in those cases, you will be taking in the virtual.
Virtually, yeah.
So ma'am, you expect any pharmaceutical foundation knowledge for that?
So it's not compulsory, because the course becomes very self-explanatory once when you start it. But I would say there will be a requirement of understanding therapeutic areas to some extent. So like, if I say that I've got a heart attack.
I came across some employees, not in recorded, I can say, Novartis, SaS they're using.
Yeah.
And they're from engineering background and working there, and they always
Right.
tell their difficulty of not having an understanding of the pharmaceutical formulas, they keep always telling.
Exactly.
They experience the difficulty.
Yes, so that is the problem in the industry, and that's why it's B Farm and M Farm students, and then there is an in-house training on the software which is conducted for them.
Okay.
So that shift has happened because
Domain, using the large models which are already available, how the results are, have you tried it?
yes, we have. Unfortunately, I cannot disclose it because the patent is under review right now. But what I can tell you is we were doing it on.
Are the results promising or not? Just one word.
Yeah. Because here you are not talking about the conduct, you're talking about the analysis part. And when you actually look at clinical regulations, like the submission regulations, each and every word is documented. So, classic example would be if you're running a clinical trial for the patient, or if I go to a doctor, there is basic information about me which is collected. Then, if I'm taking a medication, if I'm having any side effects, or if I'm following. Talk about the conduct of a clinical trial, you have a protocol. On the basis of the protocol, you have the statistical analysis plan. Without the statistical analysis plan, I cannot create a case study report and submit it to the FDA. So whatever is written in the SAP is broken down for me in a tabular format. And that's actually what your RAG would end up with. But again, it keeps the human in the loop. It just reduces the time.
The diagnostic parameter range is cheap.
Talking about BMI indicators of obesity, in the US it's obviously going to be on the higher side, in India it's going to be on the lower side. Talking about diabetes obviously it's going to be on the lower side, in US is going to be on the higher side. So it's all about the market that you're playing with. I mean, we cannot deny it is a profitable market here. That's
Okay.
not to be recorded, please.
You already said it. Use it. How does the university use it? Can we tie up with SaS for some kind of certifications, training program, what we do, what we don't do for colleges? So this is the session, last 30 minutes. After about 2.5 hours, we brought to a slide. 49-year-old organization, around $4 billion US, in about 14,000 employees. Out of the Fortune top 100, 92 of them are our customers. We have in industry, we have a renewal-based option where a customer who takes SaaS once has to renew it on an annual basis in industry. 94% of a customer renew SaaS, and that's a very, very high rate, because once you go for renewal, you have to ask for the money on the second year once again. The justification why you have to give to the customer. Why are you renewing it? What benefit it's giving to you? And around 83,000 plus sites across the world, around 150 countries. Just something about SaaS. Coming to education. We just discussed about use cases. We discussed about use cases, manufacturing, insurance. I would not want to repeat once again. There are quite a few which we discussed in the last 1.5 hours. Coming to the point wherein for academics, how do we help you? We help colleges in 4 primary ways. If you are a college, option 1, if you already have an existing program with courses on AI, ML, analytics, data science, so on and so forth, we can come as a external third-party individual organization and look at it from a top view. Give you certain recommendations. This is something which you should or must change. Quite a few of the syllabuses right now are still teaching dated engineering or management concepts. We tell you, it's up to the college to take it or not take it. The biggest resistance from the program to be taken is in the college itself. If you can bulldoze, request, whatever the way you can do it, because professors within the college would not want to change, because then they believe the subjects are going away. I'm talking this in an academic forum only. So one option we give you, you can get it executed from anybody, from SaS, or third party, yourself, your other departments, but please change a few subjects. They are dead. Don't waste your credits in teaching them outdated subjects. Second, if you believe you have certain specialization only on, let's say, management, the sir was telling a few minutes before. If you want to have a financial analytics as a specialization, or you want to have, even in AIML as a specialization, you want to have a fraud as a specialization within your ecosystem. Either we come in for the first couple of years, teach your students and also your professors use cases and theory and hands-on application. As your professors mature in these subjects, we quietly come out and hand over the reins to them. That's the ideal scenario. Sometimes, as a trust, as a university, you want to have a strategy where some subjects only SaS teaches. That's a different agreement we can have, we can discuss and we can look at it. Ideally, I am not a college. Teaching is not my strength. My strength is selling and making software. But in case you believe there's a certain amount of use cases, certain amount of theory, certain amount of application we can teach, we can come and teach. We cannot replace your professors, first of all. We are not there for that activity. I will teach him applied machine learning, provided you have taught him machine learning before I come and teach him. I would teach him only modeling once he knows stats very well. That part still has to come from the college. We don't have that entire thing of teaching because that's not our core, that's your core business. Third, in case a college wants to launch a joint program with an industry partners, there are industry partners who have been, I'm sure you would have spoken to a number of them in your stint wherever you are. We're not an edtech company or a software company. So the way we teach is purely hands-on. On the class. If we want to launch a joint MBA or an engineering program where the fundamentals, the theory, the mathematics and basics come from the college, used cases, application and hands-on operationalization comes from us, we are open to tie up with you. This is pretty simple. And in case these programs, we have a few global certifications. We have 500 plus courses. Of that, there are about 17 odd global certifications. And in case these programs also map into global certification, we do that in the college campus as well. That is a mota way how we do. Fourth option which we do is, if a college wants to get into a different line of business like executive education, an online distance education, those are as and when cases we normally work with the college. But executive education is a difficult market. Pilani knows, it does it very well, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. Otherwise, but we're open to look at it in case there's a captive audience in that area where the college is located. We can think of executive education as well. Broadly, 4 ways how we help colleges. Content delivery. There are 6 ways how we logically deliver. Public classroom. Let's say I launch an elective in a college on a fraud as a subject. Yeah, I have heard global scenario as well. If there are 3 students who want to learn fraud, I will put him in a public batch where he might be having students from, let's say, UK or Australia. But if he wants to learn fraud, he should be able to learn fraud in our college. And that's where we want to focus upon. How is this knowledge different? So what happens is that being an OEM, now let's say,
You can go there.
it's not working. Let's say 10 years, lots of people have taken money from India and absconded. RBI has realized you need to have a strong anti-money laundering laws. What they have done, they have released RFPs on AML across the world. We are one of the primary providers of AML solutions in banks. Today, if they are implementing AML, I know in the next 3 years they would need AML guys to work on those products. No viewers will know that. Because everybody in the viewers would normally believe, nobody uses chalta hi nahi. They would not know the RBI's diktat of getting in AML in banks. As a software OEM, we bring in that expertise. We tell colleges, a college call it is, whether they want to include that and get inside something new or continue playing safe. That's a very individual call and we don't challenge that as well. That is something which we normally do.
Training is in two kinds. One is, ideally I recommend training to happen in the classroom, where my professor travels down to the college, old school rudimentary way. We believe it's more effective. Everybody may not believe so. Whatever we do is hands-on, needs to be in a lab. Remotely teaching on these topics sometimes has its own technological challenges. Option 2, if needed, we also do training on a live web a module where somebody is sitting remotely and doing it. But that's again a pedagogical approach as well as college approach. Sometimes we take half subjects. For example, you have fraud analytics as a financial paper in BBA finance or an MBA finance. A 45-hour exam or a 60-hour lecture, 30 hours the professor takes, teaches them fraud concepts. We come in for the next 30 hours, teach him hands-on. Fraud is an example, need not be fraud. It can be credit scoring in finance, it can be risk, it can be anti-money laundering, it can be any of these topics. We come and teach. Giving a faculty to the student, giving the subject to a faculty, आता है, खाली आपको SAS नहीं आता. If we start teaching you, if you start taking the subjects, we not only give you the topics, we also give you additional PowerPoint slides, case study, hands out, so that teachers can teach it effectively as well. Those are the things what we actually help you do. Some SaS certifications. I don't know where the slide is gone. Yeah, so we were talking about live web, e-learning, mentoring, academic certification, private classes. I think so we covered most of it. Some certification, global certification. Now this is a very student-centric choices. There are students who would want to work after their degree. Some of them want to go abroad. What we have seen, most of the US universities, in case you're doing your MS in US, SAS is a very normal light skill. There is a strong possibility if he's migrated to US, Australia or Canada, universities would mostly have SAS. If he has done a SAS certification in his undergrad level, probability of him getting an RARTA is slightly higher. Of course, there's no guarantee sitting here. He has to still go and work there. But we have seen his RATA scores, chances normally go up in case he's SAS certified. PG, it is not so important because after PG anyways is working. So that is a call which is again a student and the department can take. Some certifications which can, don't worry, technological issue and technology company in a hospitality industry. No problem, now what to do? We have certain amount of badges. You should be here, right? Certain amount of badges. I am sure most of the people who have been giving certification have badges which are there. Badges are digital badges which is normally given. So SAS do have badges in terms of certification badges. We have badges for.
We have a break for 10 minutes so that this can be set out. Otherwise,
we normally work with. We conduct hackathons. Last year we had a hackathon with GIM, Goa Institute of Management, which is one of our premium colleges we work with. It has a program called as BDA, Big Data Analytics. Here we are a part of the management MBA program where around, guys, your leader was okay. The entire was we are closing it. After every 10 minutes, please you can. We have a hackathon with most of our customers whom we work with. So I know all colleges and universities have hackathon in their own ways. So last time hackathon which we had with GI was approximately 2,000 people big, where students normally have their online examination. Round 1, round 2, they should come to the campus. And a few selected students then have a problem statement for 24 hours time. And we have a special final day where it's a placement drive as well. And we do those things with colleges. We did with Chandigarh University as well. That's one of our customers. So yes, we work with various universities. We have a university like in North India. This is some of the images of hackathon where 760 days happened. 2000 registration happened in GIM. So at the end we can have an inception day wherein we have some song and dance. So these are all various kind of options. And last but not the least is Talent Connect. Is something with the customers. asked for. So my first statement here is that why am I here? What is bringing me here? Education is hardly 2% of our turnover revenue. It's not that I want to make money out of this. My biggest captive audience is my 3,000 odd global customers who are in India and around 700 plus Indian customers. They need SaS as a part of their skills. SaS is not a very big employer. We are a product company. Unlike a TCS or a Wipro, we don't employ hundreds and thousands because product companies don't employ like that. We are a product company. Our partners need a lot of people who work on SaS. So it can be possible you might be having these services companies coming into your ecosystem of working, but they might not know you are teaching SaS as a part of the curriculum. Very high skilled, high salaried jobs are there. How do you inculcate as a part of your curriculum? That depends upon purely on the college's decision. One-to-one sometimes happens wherein college recruiters do come and ask me, I want a person with an AI knowledge or something on an ML side of it. I do tell them on a one-to-one that this is a college where you can take. It's also a matter of salaries, how much they're offering, so on and so forth. So every college has a different offering of salaries as well. So this is how we actually do for colleges, and some collaborations where we work with IIT Kanpur, Lal Bahadur Shastri, CMC Vellore, Goa Institute of Management, IIM Ahmedabad, Chandigarh University. So there can be various universities whom we work with. We are not so strong in southern India. We are mainly present in West and now in North. I said, being an enterprise-focused organization, we were not so strongly promoting this, but now what we believe is that my customers need SaS resources, and that's where I am here. And if any of the college post this meeting, you have coordinates of the organizers as well. And any of the colleges post this meeting, we believe you would want to have SaS as a part of management curriculum, be it a normal MBA or undergrad BBA, integrated management curriculum like an MBA, BBA combined, or you want to have a part of a science curriculum, which can be a MSc or a BSc or BSc, MSc combined, or a engineering curriculum, or it can be of any other stream of your college's interest we can think of, or you want to get into specialization domain side, something like clinical, something like pharma, can be looked at. There is no guinea pigging here. We have most of the content ready. Some of it is also already being delivered. It's successfully done for quite some time. But there is no cookie cutter approach as well. Each college, each dean, each program chair has his own agenda, has his own vision. The curriculum which he creates is kind of his baby. We sit with them, work on a pedagogical approach, subject by subject, credit by credit, and then come out with certain amount of outcomes. Certain basics are common because be it engineering, be it management, basics are still common. I have to still teach them basics. How much advanced we can go into is something which we agree and disagree together in the closed room. Pitfalls: SaS is not easy. It is difficult. If I give a student option of taking to eat a chocolate or a karele ki sabji, you'll always have a chocolate. Nobody wants a karele ki sabji. This is where the teacher and the college has to come in conjunction that it is not the easiest subject to study. He will not have 5-year papers. He will not have old examination copies. He has to do it hands-on. When we teach in engineering and when we teach in management, data mining is data mining still. But when we are teaching engineering, it is algorithm. Is deep diving into that. When we are teaching into purely in management, it is application of it and use cases primarily with what is taught. There are 2 tracks of SaS normally when we teach. One is completely GUI based non-coding approach depending upon the program. If I'm teaching in a management or a humanities or on a science based exam, we don't get into coding so much. Although I believe some coding is important, but it also program chair belief also has to be there. If we are teaching in engineering, it is primarily coding dependent. That's how we start the program as well. Is SaS a replacement for open source? No, it is not. He should learn one open source properly, be it R, Python, a choice of the college. But he should also study one proprietary software as well properly. SaS can be one of the options for him to do. Because you don't know what will he normally get into studying or teaching after he passes the curriculum. So this is what we normally tell to our customers. And this is broadly I wanted to cover on the offering side, what we do give to universities, and as I said, we prefer coming and teaching in the college, but if the college wants it to be remote and live, we're open for that as well. Any questions, professors? And one more thing which I forgot is the tool. How do you utilize the tool? You don't have to invest a single paisa to work on SaS. Somebody had an issue that it's very expensive software. We are now on cloud. We don't charge you X number of dollars. Buy the software, install it in your lab, buy hardware, install it in your lab. No. We understand this is a difficult elephant to handle in an academic environment. Academics are good at teaching. They are not good at managing softwares. That's not their core business, and I understand that, appreciate it as well. We have the entire thing on the cloud. Whenever my professor comes in, he teaches him for let's say 15 hours, have a midterm, again teaches him for 15 hours in case it's a 30-hour credit subject, goes back, has an end term examination. For the entire 6 months duration, the access of the software is given to him on the cloud. Cloud comes with a charge, but he has to still study. The entire access is given to him on the cloud.
What SaS stands for?
Now we are called only as SaS, SAS. It was
Telangana in the last 3 months we had 700 plus openings, 53 new lists.
him to say he's just seen it himself. So point is that there are openings coming, there are jobs.
But mostly it's on the clinical.
No, depends. Depends. It also into risk, also into fraud. It's also into overview. But Hyderabad as a region is stronger in clinical because we have more CROs sitting there.
More laboratories here.
Yeah. So if you change it to let's say NCR, you will have maybe different profiles of job. If you come to Mumbai, you will have possibly jobs in financial industry. So those are all locational variances. But point is that there are jobs. And in the time that marketing getting jobs is a dearth, and when I have 70, 80 jobs coming out on a daily basis, I think so there is a case which we can think of. Questions, sir? Anything which we can, which you want to ask me?
Hackathons will be conducting with your collaborative universities or institutions.
We do that because it's investment from my side. A lot of effort goes in. We don't charge you for a hackathon. That's not my business. But to get it up and running, it's a lot of effort. So I prefer doing it with colleges whom we are working with naturally. Also a branding activity for the colleges. So we are having a hackathon in the month of January with Sri Balaji University, Pune. We are having a hackathon in February with Goa Institute of Management, Goa.
You will collaborate other institutions along with it, or
No.
say exclusively for?
No, we do it for Goa Institute of Management, let's say. They will put it in all those, there are various websites which are there, so where they push it on and they call students from everywhere.
Internally and then select a few and then.
Yeah. So they publish it openly. So we have 2,000 opening which we saw last time for Goa. Attendees had come in. So that's how they publish it. Is up to them.
That is basically management students.
They have conducted a hackathon. Engineering colleges have not conducted. We didn't say they not to conduct. Yes, management colleges have conducted it. So we are doing it for them. We have a Purnima University. Just we have an IIM Lucknow. We also have a Purnima University at Rajasthan, which is a tier 2 university. Might not be the premium university.
But will you be doing some sort of a motivation or some idea and such things for hackathon to prepare students?
We do that. We guide them. We guide them basics. We do guide them because I know they are also because it's mostly student run, college sponsored. We technologically back them. It's a tri-party activity. Students don't run it. We can't run it for them.
But it is mostly software based.
It is
fully
software based. And we give them a data set. They have to find out the problem. What's the problem in the data? Solve it either with SAS or with R or with Python or whatever language they know of, if it is available for them, and come out with the logical answer and solution with that. So we don't restrict them to solve only with SAS. So one thing you will see, although I am an OEM, we are not averse to open sources. So we are happy to integrate with them, happy to work with them, and we're happy to take it forward with them. Any other questions, sir? Yeah, please.
So the first question that I have is both AI and compliances are dynamic and evolving. So when you have your train the trainer program, so are there any refresher courses?
Most of the time when SAS is taught in a college, it is most of the time, not all of the time, it is SaS delivers it directly to the student most of the time. Few occasions when the scale is large, we can't deliver it in such a large medium. We have it. SaS trains the faculty, faculty trains the student. We have a version change, a logical upgrade in the software. Logical, because depending upon the market needs are, we have to get in upgrade across. So good or bad thing again, because you're working with us, we will keep on telling you what's happening new in the market. It's the college's responsibility to get it approved from the Board of Studies and get it changed. Because if you do not change it, you are just left behind. So we help you to do that, and we upgrade you at a periodic basis depending upon the subjects. Basic software programs don't change, courses don't change, but advanced courses do change.
So I have a follow-up question with that. Now,
You mean compliance in terms of laws?
yeah, compliance in terms of laws as well as kind of in the evolving dynamics of AI.
Okay, yes, the AI part he covered, the software part he covered.
Like
If you're looking at compliance and 11, that's something that would be imparted, or the FTA laws or the HIPAA laws, that background information would be given. So the software part, in which ways he's covered, that is taken care of. So it also depends on the industry when you talk about the compliance space.
And one more thing that I have is now, when we say that there's so much push from the government for AI and all of that, now would it not be a good idea to actually pitch to the regulators, which governs kind of an education, and say that and pitch it to them, and kind of they understand the need for having it? Is it not much easier?
We tell them we can't pursue that beyond a point. The ridiculous limit to just informing them, but decisions happen with many other considerations as well. Thank you. Constraints of real life, constraints of technology and time. If there are no more questions, we will have a small felicitation ceremony. Post it, we would get into a small dinner and a cocktail which has been kept for you. Please do not go home hungry. Atithi Devo Bhav. Still, you are my guest here, and I'll be happy to chat further regarding any other discussions. We have tried to kind of speak most of the topics. Some things we couldn't cover is how can I stop noise and distraction in IT industry. I didn't have an answer to give it to you. And at least I'm candid to tell you I didn't have an answer. If anybody else would want to answer these questions to the peer group, you can always do that. I might not have an answer for this. And price, we don't discuss prices.